The purpose of coil building is to permanently attach coils in order to build up the sides of your project. Please write the purpose now on your worksheet. Alright, now we're ready to coil build. I've made these coils ahead of time. Notice that they're not all the same length, not a problem. I'm going to store them underneath a damp rag to keep them from drying out. Got my pinch pot here that's been stored in a wet plastic bag. Or if you do this on one day under a wet rag, you want to keep this nice and wet so that it's not drying out. If you're trying to attach wet clay to dry clay, it's just going to fall apart. This is the top edge of our pinch pot, and that's where we're going to be adding the coils to build this bowl both up and out. Our second step is to lay the coil on the top edge of the pinch pot. Doesn't need to reach all the way around, so it's okay that this one's not as long as the circumference of my bowl. My left hand is my non-dominant hand. I do not write with my left hand. So I use that to support the outside of my bowl. And I'm going to use my dominant hand, which is my right hand, to smear the coil using small vertical marks. I'm going to attach the coil to the inside of my pinch pot here. The inside of the coil to the inside of the pinch pot. Now what I'm going to do is switch my hand position. So my left hand was on the outside. Now my left hand is going to be on the inside in this position. Let me turn that around. And I'm going to hold the inside of the bowl, and I'm going to smear the outside with my thumb of my right hand, my dominant hand. See if we can get a better look at that. You're probably not going to have it up on its edge like this. I'm just doing that so that you can see better. So I'm using those small vertical marks to attach that coil to the upper edge of my bowl. So we've got our coil from here to here. I like to coil in a clockwise direction, but if it works for you the other way better, doesn't really matter. Now I'm going to grab another coil that's been sitting underneath my wet rag to keep it nice and moist. And I'm going to attach that right where the old coil left off, right here. So you can see I've put those right up against each other and I'm going to smear them together. Kind of depends on where you are in the building process, whether it's easier to smear on the inside first or the outsides first. I find that when you're first getting going, it's easier to smear on the inside first. If you've got little pieces of clay like this, you can just add them to the end of the coil as long as you're smearing those together to not trap any air bubbles. Now, as we're adding coils, we really want to think about what shape we want this vessel to be. If we want it to build the walls straight up from here, then we're going to add the coil directly on top. I'd actually be adding right here where this last one left off. So directly on top, like that, would make the walls build straight up. To the outside, if we're adding the coils to the outside, then that's going to cause your bowl to flare out. So the edge would come out. If we looked at it from the side, it'd be coming out this way towards us. If we add the coil to the inside, like this is going to decrease the diameter of the bowl. Adding to the inside is going to make those walls come in like this. Be careful that you don't go in too steeply. If you go just straight in, then it'll just collapse to the bottom. So you've got to build it just to that inner edge if you want to start making the diameter smaller, make the edges come up like this. Generally, if you're making a bowl, you're going to want to just add it slightly, just slightly to the outside, just barely. If you add it too much to the outside, you're just going to turn it into a plate. Now here is where we're jumping up onto the top of that old coil, and that's fine. We're just going to continue along. See how I'm supporting with this non-dominant hand? That's really important. And you'll notice that tend to thin out the walls of your bowl or whatever you're making as you go here. Here I'm attaching a coil and then smoothing the inside and outside of the bowl so that I can't see any evidence of coils. I'm checking for any gaps in the coils that I'm going to fill in immediately. Notice that I'm moving the bowl around so that it doesn't stick to the table. If you turn the bowl upside down like this, just make sure that it doesn't collapse, so keep supporting it with your hands. Okay, here's my ruler. I'm going to go ahead and measure the diameter. The diameter here is, if I line up with this 0 mark, which is right there, it's about 7 1/4 in diameter. Now I'm going to measure the height by looking at it from the side. And it's just almost 3 inches in height. Not quite 3 inches, so if I wanted to get to 3 inches, I would need to add another coil. So here I'm adding another coil using the same steps that we've seen before. Just checking for any gaps and continually moving the bowl so that it doesn't stick to the table. If you're having issues with sticking, you might want to consider putting a dry paper towel under your bowl. And even if that sticks in kind of permanently, it'll burn away in the kiln. So that's a good technique if you're worried about the bowl sticking or you're worried about it ripping out the bottom. Notice I'm adding a little bit of water to the top edge and then remeasuring to make sure that I've met the standard that I want to meet. Here I'm trimming the top edge with a string. You can also use a thin wire. I'm holding it like dental floss, and I'm holding it tightly as I go around so I don't gouge out a piece from the top of my bowl. I just want barely that little top edge to kind of even things out here. Really important to hold that string or wire tightly. With these little extra pieces, I'm going to re-wedge those, and I can make them into a creature or recycle them into a slip container. Don't want to waste any clay here. Could also maybe make a small handle out of this. Once I'm done with that, I want to smooth those edges. They do get kind of sharp when you trim them, so I'm going to smooth those out with just a little bit of water.